Hi there, I'm Scarlett, and I hail from the heart of Dallas, Texas. I'm a 35-year-old woman. I have got a story to tell, so grab a seat and let me take you on a little journey through my life. It all began when I was 25, living the Dallas dream. I'm a Texas gal, born and bred, and back then, I was just your regular gal working at a local design firm. Life was pretty sweet, but then one day, while I was sipping on my go-to caramel latte at this cozy cafe near work, I crossed paths with what I thought was destiny. I met Nick, my husband, and let me tell you, he was one charming dude. He had just rolled into Dallas after wrapping up college in New York. This guy had a smile that could make ice cream melt in a snowstorm. We got to talking, and before we knew it, we were head over heels. We would chat for hours about everything under the sun, our dreams, our lives, and it felt like we had known each other forever. Love was in the air. A few years later, under the Texas sky, we made it official, tying the knot in a beautiful, intimate ceremony. Just a year after our sweet wedding day, our little Rex showed up. He was a bundle of joy with big blue eyes and the most infectious giggle you would ever hear. Our family was complete and life was perfect. My little Rex is 7 years old. He is a real firecracker, full of life and curiosity about the world. Watching him grow and explore life has been the greatest joy of my life. A year ago, I walked in on a scene that I had never thought I would witness. It was a devastating revelation. My husband, Nick, was cheating on me with none other than Bella, his best friend from college. You know, I always thought Bella was harmless. She had been around since forever, and there were moments when I questioned her proximity to Nick. But Nick, ever the smooth talker, used to tell me she was like a sister to him. I took Nick at his word, for my trust in him was unshakable, and I believed that our bond was equally strong. Bella would visit Nick from time to time, flying in for what Nick portrayed as innocent reunions. It struck me as odd, but I did not want to appear paranoid or irrational. I told myself they were merely best friends catching up. Then came that fateful day when I discovered the truth. Bella had flown into town for the weekend, and she was insistent about babysitting Rex while I enjoyed a much-needed outing with my friends. I decided to catch a movie and perhaps do some shopping, relishing the rare chance to unwind. Nick told me that he was called into his office on a Saturday, so he had no choice but to go there. My friends and I did watch the movie, though our shopping plan had been cancelled due to an unexpected change in one of my friend's schedules. I returned home a lot earlier than anticipated. As I walked into the house, a chill ran down my spine and my heart sank. There, right in front of me, was a sight I could never have imagined. Nick and Bella were kissing each other, and they both were all over the couch. "What the hell is happening here?" "Scarlett, what are you doing here? You were supposed to be here later." "Huh? Are you serious? This is my home, not yours. Also, that is my husband and not yours." "Scarlett, please, babe, this is not what it seems to be. I can explain." "I don't need your explanation. How long has this been going on for?" Nick looked at me in the eye and told me the truth. "Well, a while." "How much is a while?" Don't get angry, Scarlett. It was when you were pregnant with Rex. But it was an on and off thing, I promise." "Since I was pregnant? You were cheating on me while I was pregnant with our son? It has been 7 years. I am disgusted by you, Nick." "Scarlett, we never meant for it to last this long, but we love each other." "Love? I can't believe this. And where is Rex? Where is our son while all this is happening?" "I put him to bed earlier. I lied about the office call." "You put our child to bed and you were doing this while he was in the next room?" Scarlett, I know I messed up, but it was not like that. I never wanted to hurt you or Rex. Scarlett, please believe us. We are so sorry. Yes, I'm sorry, darling. I'll do anything in the world to make it up to you. Sorry? Sorry does not fix this. You have betrayed everything we had. Our family, our love, everything. And you, Bella? I let you into my house without ever questioning you, and you do this. You are nothing but a homewrecker. Scarlett, please, we need to figure this out. I love you and I don't want to lose our family. Love does not involve cheating. I need some time to think about this. I will leave. Oh, you surely will. Bella left in a hurry, and Nick decided to sleep in a different room for a week. The tension was suffocating and the silence was deafening. I was absolutely shaken. It was incredibly difficult to come to terms with what had happened. This was beyond disgusting. Nick, the man I had loved and trusted, had turned out to be a pathetic excuse for a husband. The ultimate betrayal was staring me in the face. For a week, we didn't talk. It was all cold shoulders and distant glances. The house felt emptier than ever, even though we were all under the same roof. I could not continue living like this, torn between the love I had for my son and the anger I had for my husband. So, after a week of soul-searching and sleepless nights, I made a decision. I had to choose my own well-being and that of my son over a man who had deceived me in the worst possible way. Nick, we need to talk. Scarlett, I am again very sorry for what happened. Save your apologies. I've made my decision. I want a divorce. Live here in Dallas or go to New York to be with the love of your life. I already know your office has a branch in New York City. You are out of this house. Ask them for a transfer or something. I do not care. I want you out. Scarlett, please let us not rush into this. I messed up, but I love you. Messed up? For 7 whole years? It never even occurred to you what you were doing to our family? It is not like that, Scarlett. Bella and I, we never meant for this to happen. But it did, Nick. You chose to betray me, your wife, with your so-called friend. You two love each other, you say? So go spend your lives together. I don't care about you anymore. Scarlett, please don't do this. I'm begging you. You lie at the lowest tier of the pyramid, Nick. You are a disgusting man. You don't deserve to be in this house any longer. What about Rex? He is staying with me, obviously, until the court decides what's going to happen. Scarlett, I don't want to lose my son. You should have thought about that before you made your choices, Nick. You have 1 week to figure out your situation and leave this house. Within a week, Nick decided to leave our city and live with Bella in New York. He transferred offices to be with her. I couldn't believe the audacity of Nick. After all that had happened, the way he moved on so quickly was baffling to me. The day Nick was leaving, he decided to have a little chat with Rex. Hey, champ, I need to talk to you. Daddy, what's up? Well, buddy, I have to go away for work. It is a special project, and I don't know how long it'll take. But why, Daddy? Sometimes grown-ups have to do things they don't want to. How long will you be gone, Daddy? I don't know, buddy. Goodbye. The first month without Nick was like a roller coaster of emotions. On one hand, it felt liberating to have the freedom to set our own routines without the cloud of his betrayal hanging over us. But on the other hand, there was a constant sadness knowing that Rex was growing up without his dad around. As a mom, I felt this immense responsibility to make sure Rex was okay during this adjustment. We created our own little world, filling it with new experiences to replace the gap that Nick had left. One of the toughest things I had to do during this time was contact a lawyer and file for divorce. It was a heart-wrenching process, but it was a necessary step to move forward. The pain was unbearable. Then, sometime later, I received a phone call from Nick. It was the very first time we had spoken since he left, and his voice sounded different, as if he had changed significantly. "Scarlett, it's been a while, hasn't it? I just wanted to let you know that Bella and I are doing really well. We are happier than ever." "Good for you, Nick." "You know, Scarlett, I've realized that you were not quite the woman I needed. You didn't understand me as Bella does." "Well, I'm glad Bella is the woman you need. So did you just call me to insult me like that?" "So here's the reason I called. I'm in Dallas and I want to pick up Rex. I miss him." 1 month has gone by and no phone calls. You did not even pick up any of Rex's calls, and now all of a sudden you miss your son? "We are not divorced yet, and Rex belongs to both of us equally. I'm taking him to New York City with me for a week. It will be good for him. I think it is essential for Rex to spend some quality time with his father. It will help him adjust to the changes." "I understand that, Nick, but we should work out a proper arrangement. We do not want to disrupt Rex's routine or create confusion." "Scarlett, I'm his father. I know what's best for him. I already bought his plane ticket. This is happening. I will drop by later tonight. Just pack a bag for him, will you?" "Sure." After my talk with Nick, I had to shift gears and prepare Rex for his week with his dad, so I packed a bag for him. You know, the essentials, his favorite toys, clothes, and that worn-out stuffed bear he can't sleep without. I wanted Rex to feel at home wherever he was. Then came the heart-to-heart talk. I sat him down and tried to make it as light as possible. I told him he was going on an adventure in New York City with his dad, and Bella would be there too. Oh, the innocence. And then I gave him his tablet and told him I would contact him about it. He was nervous and excited at the same time. Later that night, Nick and Bella came to pick Rex up. I watched them from the window as their car pulled up. "Bella, I did not know you'd be here too." "Well, Scarlett, you should have expected that. Bella and I are together now." "Yeah, Scarlett, we are very much together." "Look, this is not the time or place. I can't believe he'll be living with you and Bella." "You better believe it." "And one more thing, Nick. When you are with Rex, please don't tell him what's really going on between you and Bella. Don't put any ideas into his head. He's just a kid and he doesn't need to be caught up in all of this." "You are always overthinking things, Scarlett." "I'm just protecting my son." As they left, I was left alone with my thoughts. Life had been happening so fast with so many changes in just a couple of months. It was hard to catch up, you know. I could not help but think about Rex staying with Nick and Bella, especially Bella. Would he be confused about why his daddy was living with another woman? It was all so overwhelming. This was the first time Rex had been away from me for an extended period, and it made me a bit anxious. I knew he would be in good hands with his father, but I couldn't help but worry about how all these changes were affecting my little boy. Thankfully, I had a solid support system. My friends and parents were there for me, providing comfort and a listening ear when I needed it. I was incredibly grateful for them, and they helped me navigate the emotional roller coaster that was my life at that moment. For the next 4 days, I made it a point to video call Rex every day. Each time he picked up, it was like a little ray of sunshine. Sometimes he was out in the park with his dad, and on one memorable occasion, they were at Coney Island, riding all those funfair rides. Rex seemed so happy, and that was a relief. Bella was often there with them, and it was hard to see her interacting with my son. The pain was still fresh. On the 5th night of Rex's stay, when I video called him, my wildest nightmare came true. "Hey, champ, how was your day? What did you do? I've missed you." "We went to a museum, Mom. It was so cool. I wish you could have been there." "That sounds fun. Where is your dad, by the way?" "He's not home, Mom." "Oh, he's not? It is quite late, so you must be with Bella, right?" "No, Mom. I'm home all alone." "Wait, what? Is there a babysitter with you?" No, there's no babysitter, Mom. Rex, it is 10 at night. Did you eat something? Dad said he would get pizza on his way back home, but he's not back yet. Hold on a minute, sweetheart. I'll talk to your dad and find out what's going on. I was mad, furious even, at Nick. How could he leave Rex all alone? It was irresponsible and, quite frankly, unacceptable. My concern grew as I tried calling both Nick and Bella, but neither of them was picking up. It was as if the universe had conspired to send me into a panic. Desperation began to set in. I called Rex back, hoping to hear his little voice on the other end, but there was no answer. My heart pounded in my chest and fear gripped me like a vice. I could not help but let my mind wander to all the worst-case scenarios. Had something happened to them? Was Rex okay? My thoughts were racing a mile a minute, and all I wanted was to hear my son's voice, to know that he was safe and sound. I called all three of them again and again, but there was still no answer. At that moment, I knew I had to take matters into my own hands. Desperation drove me to pick up the phone and call Jordan, a close friend who worked in the airline industry. I explained the situation to him, the urgency of it all. Without hesitation, he assured me that he'd do whatever he could to help. I had to get to New York to my son as quickly as possible. Jordan worked his magic, arranging the earliest flights possible. The flight was scheduled for 4 a.m, and the hours leading up to it were the longest and most agonizing I had ever experienced. At 3 a.m., I could not wait any longer. I knew I had to get to New York as soon as possible to find out what was going on and to make sure Rex was safe. I left for the airport in a hurry. As I sat there on the plane, I couldn't stop the tears from flowing, my heart pounding with panic and fear. The seat felt like a prison, the minutes stretching into hours. I knew where Bella's apartment was, having been there once during a visit, but finding my way there at that hour was a challenge, and the dark, quiet streets of New York City only added to my sense of urgency. It was 9 a.m. when I finally reached Bella's apartment. Exhausted, frantic, and terrified, I stood outside her door, my heart pounding. My knuckles hit the door in a hurried rhythm, each sound feeling like an eternity as I waited for someone to answer. Rex finally answered the door. It seemed like he had just woken up. I hugged him and held on to him, crying, "Rex, I'm so glad you're okay. I was so worried." "I was asleep, Mom." "Thank God you locked the door from the inside." "Dad told me to." "Rex, are Dad and Bella still not back yet?" "No, Mom, they're not here." "Well, sweetie, Mommy is first going to make you a quick snack and then pack your bags. You are coming back with me." I stayed at Bella's apartment with Rex until 1 p.m. The flight back home wasn't scheduled until 3, and there was no sign of Nick and Bella. With each passing minute, my fury grew, and I could have throttled them both with my bare hands for their irresponsibility. I couldn't fathom how they could leave a 7-year-old child all alone and not have the decency to communicate with me. God only knows where they were, what they were doing, or why they had left my son unattended. I just wanted to get back to Dallas. We arrived back at our home in Dallas around 8 p.m, and I could not help but feel a sense of relief wash over me. Still, there was no word from Nick. I had so many questions and so much anger, and a part of me was also worried for him. Then, after having takeout for dinner, I dialed Nick again, and this time he picked up. But this time, I was not letting him off the hook easy. "Hey, how's it going?" "I'm okay. It's been quite a day. Where have you been?" "I just got around to listening to your voicemails. You sounded concerned about Rex last night." "Yeah, I tried to reach out to him, but he was not responding yet. So, where is our son?" "Well, yeah, I noticed you called last night and this morning. We had a lovely pizza night, watched a movie, called it a night early, and today, we've been out all day." That is all well and good, but where's Rex right now? I really want to talk to him. He's not answering my video calls on his tablet. Rex is here with me, actually. We're having a great time playing together. Oh, are you? Hold up a minute. I handed over the phone to Rex and put it on speaker. Hey, Daddy. Oh my God, Rex. Hey, buddy, how did you get there? Mommy came to Bella's house in the morning and took me home. Rex, I'm really sorry for leaving you alone and not coming back last night. Give the phone to your mom. Rex, honey, why don't you go and play? Thank God he's with you. Bella and I were just about to go to the cops. Listen, I can explain. Nick, do you have any idea how worried I was? You left Rex alone overnight. I couldn't reach either of you. You didn't even bother to call a babysitter to watch Rex. What if something bad had happened? And on top of all that, you just lied to me. Scarlett, I'm sorry. We lost track of time. We were out partying with a few friends. Partying? You left our son alone to party? It wasn't planned. We had a few drinks and it got out of hand. Then our phones died and we couldn't contact anyone. We were so hungover we woke up literally in the evening. You just vanished. Do you know how irresponsible is that? You know, this isn't the first time something like this has happened, right? I know, Scarlett, it was a terrible lapse in judgment. We should have been more responsible. And you were hungover for what, the whole day? You decide to pick up my phone now? Weren't you a little bit worried about our son? Like I said, the drinking got a bit out of hand. Nick, there is no excuse for the danger you put our son into. You left our child alone, scared and worried. You will pay for this. Oh, you're threatening me? Blaming me for having a little fun? No wonder you're all alone and sad. Enough, Nick. I will make sure I get full custody of Rex. Oh, just keep dreaming. Little did Nick know that during our conversation I had been recording every word, capturing his excuses and apologies. I knew I needed evidence, and it was clear that this situation had spiraled out of control. After that day, I immediately contacted my lawyer to discuss the best course of action. I told him about how I wanted the full custody of Rex, and I had all the evidence I needed to prove the kind of dad Nick was. The evidence I had gathered painted a grim picture of Nick's actions, and the court took the matter seriously. The judge made it clear that despite his regret, Nick's actions were a clear breach of parental responsibility. I fought fiercely for my son's well-being, and the court recognized that Rex's best interests were my top priority. In the end, I was granted full custody of Rex, while Nick was given limited visitation rights. It has been 6 months since the divorce and I've started moving on. I'm even seeing someone new. But let's get one thing straight. Rex is my number one. Always has been and always will be. Nick, well, he's pretty mad about the whole divorce thing. But then, out of the blue today, Nick called me up sounding all desperate and regretful. He drops a news on me. Bella cheated on him. Talk about a plot twist. He wanted me to take him back. Ha ha, what a joke. Well, they say what goes around comes around. And today, it seems like life's giving Nick a little taste of his own medicine. I'm Monica, 30 years old. Let's rewind to my childhood. I don't remember much from when I was born. I don't know who my biological parents were, and I never wanted to find out. I found myself in an orphanage surrounded by other kids with dreams and stories of their own. I held on to a hope that one day I would be chosen and my life would change forever. My lucky day came when I turned 10. A wonderful couple, Lisa and Robert, scooped me up and brought me into their family. I can still remember the butterflies in my stomach as I moved into their house. It was a place of new beginnings with every room full of possibilities. A couple of years later, our family grew yet again. Lisa and Robert decided to adopt a young boy named Austin, who was just a bit older than me. Life was all rainbows. It felt like being part of any regular family doing regular things. I never felt like an outsider, and even though people around me would ask me if I was curious to know who my parents were, I simply said no, because I truly had no interest in getting to know the people who did not want me in their lives. In my head and heart, my real family was Lisa, Robert, and Austin. I was off to college, all pumped up to chase my dreams with the solid support of my parents, but life's a twisty road. It was a call from Austin. He hit me with some bad news. Our parents, Lisa and Robert, had been in a crazy accident. The world I knew, that bubble of their love, just popped. Their loss hit me harder than I could ever imagine. I realized Austin was the only family I was left with up until I met my husband, Brian. Brian and I had our own little love story centered around our shared passion for the piano. We met through our college's music club, and then when I was 24, I made a decision that was quick, almost impulsive. Brian and I had grown so close that it felt like the natural next step. We decided to get married. We were young and in love. After Brian and I got married, he landed a decent job and we moved into his mom, Bernice's house. It was all Brian's idea. He said that we would have a ton of rent money, which we could soon invest in our own place later on. Bernice had never really warmed up to me, but we managed to coexist under the same roof. She would often drop hints that Brian had settled down too early and should have explored more of life. But everything took a dramatic turn when I found out I was pregnant. Brian seemed happy when I told him the news, but I could not say the same about Bernice. Bernice, there's something we want to share with you. We're going to have a baby. A baby? You are having a baby? Yes, Mom. We're finally going to be a grandma. We are really excited about it. Excited? This is unbelievable. You don't even have a place of your own, and now you're bringing a child into this world? We are hardly keeping up with the bills in this house, for God's sakes. Mom, don't worry. We're finally moving out. We won't take up your space anymore. You know, Brian, before Monica came into your life, you were a bright student with so much potential. You had dreams, goals, and a future ahead of you. But now, you're going to be a dad and your life's been turned upside down. Mom, it's not that black and white. I still have dreams and I'm not giving up on them. My priorities have changed a bit. Priorities? What priorities, Brian? It seems like you have completely forgotten about me. I raised you when your dad left us. You brought this woman into my house, a woman whose own parents did not want her. And what happened to the ones who finally decided to take her in? Bad luck followed them. She ruins everything she touches. You just don't get it, Brian. She was probably looking for someone to rely on, and you walked right into it. Hundreds and thousands of women out there, and you choose the one no one wants. Bernice, why do you say so much about me? I have always been nothing but nice to you. I have wanted you to accept me as part of this family, but it seems like you are determined to see the worst in me. Mom, I think Monica is right. It's time for us to find our own place as soon as possible. Brian, well, he had always been the listener in his relationship with his mom, often staying silent and just taking in what she had to say. Brian and I set out to find a small apartment of our own. I should also mention that Lisa and Robert, my parents, had a will in place, and in it, they left me a significant sum of money. Half of that money was used for the purchase of our apartment, but here's the thing, it was under Brian's name. As time went on, things started to change. Brian received a well-deserved promotion at work, and with it came a significant bump in his income. He had always traveled a lot for work. It was clear that Brian had reached whatever Bernice referred to as his potential, and it seemed to give him a certain level of smug satisfaction. He was proud of his achievements, and I was genuinely happy for him. But there was something off about his behavior. It felt like he had been pumped up by his mom, and it was affecting our relationship. During those 9 months of pregnancy, Brian was not really around much due to his demanding work schedule. It left me with a lot of alone time, but it was not all bad. Sometimes Austin and his girlfriend Lorna would come to visit. Lorna and I hit it off, and we would have these fantastic girls' nights. We would watch cheesy movies, indulge in my pregnancy cravings, and just gossip. Time passed, and it was only about 2 weeks before my due date when Brian finally came home. It's good to have you back, especially with the baby almost here. Yeah, I'm glad to be here too, babe. I need to talk to you about something. What is it? Monica, I've been talking to Mom these last few months, and it seems like she's started to come to accept you and the baby. Do you think we should call her over for the birth? Really? That's a change. Well, if you think she's genuinely coming around and wants to be part of our lives, then yeah, Brian. It might be a good idea to have her there with us. About 2 weeks after our conversation, my water broke. And that's when the roller coaster ride of childbirth began. Let me tell you, it wasn't the smoothest journey. The labor pain hit hard and I felt like I was in a pressure cooker about to blow. But then things took a scary turn. It wasn't just a regular labor drama. Nope. We had some fetal stress and maternal hemorrhage happening at the same time. Talk about double trouble. The doctors went into overdrive to save both of us. The medical team decided to do an emergency C-section, and I was out like a light. When I finally came to my senses, I had this beautiful baby girl in my arms, and I named her Roxy. Brian and Bernice were nowhere to be found. I was shifted into a private room and the doctors told me I needed to stay there for some time till I fully recovered. The trauma of that birth experience left me forever changed. I was so close to the edge, so close to losing it all, that it shook me to my core. The whole ordeal was pretty darn scary. Just when I was processing everything in my room, Brian and Bernice came in. Brian, where have you been? Did you take a look at our little girl? I finally decided on Roxy as her name. She looks like a little Roxy and, oh, she's got your nose. Monica, I've got some really bad news. The medical bills for childbirth are astronomical and I don't think we can handle it. They want us to pay a huge sum and God knows how many days you're going to spend in this room. That means nothing but more bills, and I just can't do it. Brian, what are we going to do? I mean, we can't just leave a massive bill unpaid. I have some of the money left from what my parents left me. That's not what I'm trying to say. This is a nightmare for me. My mom was right all along. I should have listened. I'm sorry, but we can't do anything. You should call Austin or someone to figure this out. We're leaving. What do you mean? Oh, what he means is he is finally seeing the light. I told him you would be nothing but trouble. Look, Monica, I've got a good position now, and if I pay for this, it's going to derail all my plans and dreams. I will not be able to get that fancy car I've been eyeing, and I won't be able to keep up with the lifestyle I want for myself. I can't sacrifice it. I'm leaving you the apartment. You can stay there. Brian, we can find a way. We can work this out together. This is the daughter we are talking about. Well, your daughter. I don't want to get involved. I can't deal with this burden right now. I need to figure things out, and I don't want you or the baby to be part of that process. I'll let you know if I change my mind. Brian, you'll let me know if you change your mind, won't you? This is not some dinner I've asked you to come for. I can't believe you're leaving us like this. Do you even realize what I've been through? The emotional distress, the trauma of childbirth, and now you're just walking away, leaving me with this enormous bill? You need to understand, Monica, you are not our responsibility. Brian can do whatever he wants. Call your so-called brother or whoever, we don't care. Son, It's time for us to leave. Sure, Mom. Bye, Monica. So there I was, broken, abandoned, and drowning in bills. I cried my heart out for what felt like an eternity, feeling like my world had crumbled. But then I called Austin, my big brother. He was furious about the situation, but he was there for me, no questions asked, and he wasn't alone. Lorna was by his side as well, and they both stepped in to be my support system. I spent the next 10 days in the hospital recovering, while Austin and Lorna juggled everything else. They got me food and baby supplies, and most importantly, they got me through the darkest time in my life. When the day came for my discharge, I needed to deal with the huge hospital bill. It was a monster, and I did not know how I was going to tackle it. But there was Austin once again being the hero. He paid a whopping 75% of that bill, and I chipped in as much as I could. He took me to the house he and Lorna were living in, which, by the way, used to be our parents' place. It was part of the will, you see. Lisa and Robert left me the money, but the house belonged to Austin now. You know, Monica, we could teach your husband and your mom-in-law a lesson they won't forget. Maybe even get your husband behind bars for deserting you like this. Austin, I appreciate your support, but I still hope that Brian will come to his senses someday. He is the father of Roxy after all, and despite everything, I don't want to give up on that possibility. I never really liked him, you know? Even from the start, he didn't seem right for you. It was all just so fast and sudden. Give her a break, babe. She just got back from the hospital. I know you've always had my back, Austin. It's just, I hope that someday Roxy can have a relationship with her father, and who knows, maybe people can change. Monica, whatever you decide, we are in this together. Monica, you know you're welcome to stay with us for as long as you want. This is your home, too. Absolutely, Monica. I work from home as a realtor, so I have my fair share of free time. We can all take care of Roxy together. You guys, I don't even know how to thank you. I was lost, and you both just saved me. I think I would like to say, this is where I need to be right now. So, there you have it. That chat with Austin and Lorna was like 4 years ago. Time flew by and a lot has happened since then. A year later, Brian asked me for a divorce. He had met someone new and it seemed like he had not changed a bit. It hurt, especially for Roxy. He did not seem to care much about his own daughter, which was heartbreaking. But life had other plans for me. I decided to focus on different things in life. I didn't want to start dating again or get caught up in all that drama. I had my sights set on my career. I had a business degree and it was time to put it to use. I sold the apartment I got in alimony and used the funds to kickstart my own business. Fast forward to now, and I'm doing pretty well. Well, let me be honest, I have been blessed beyond words. My little business turned out to be a big hit. With my new financial security, I was able to buy a beautiful home in the same neighborhood as Austin and Lorna. Talking about those two lovebirds, they also got hitched in the span of these last 4 years. You must be wondering what happened to Brian and Bernice, right? I was too. I mean, did Brian just waltz off into the sunset with the love of his life and live happily ever after? I had all these questions swirling around in my head, and honestly, I never got proper closure from the past. But about 2 months ago, my phone rang and it was a call that changed everything. Hello, Monica, it's Bernice. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Bernice? This is quite a surprise. What can I do for you? Well, I saw this article in the local magazine about your business and how well you're doing. I must admit, I was quite impressed. It just reminded me of you and I thought I should call. Thank you, Bernice. I did not expect to hear from you after all these years. How is Roxy, by the way? Roxy's just fine. Thanks for asking. She's growing up fast. Monica, I was thinking maybe we should catch up. There are things I would like to talk to you about. Things from the past. All good intentions, dear. Don't worry. I'll think about it. I'll drop you a text on this number. All right, darling. Just try to give this old woman a chance to apologize. I couldn't help but feel confused. After all these years, why would Bernice suddenly want to reconnect to apologize? I wanted to get answers. It was a mystery that tugged at the edges of my mind. I decided to text her and we agreed to meet at a cafe. Bernice, it's been a while. How have you been? Monica, I've been well. It's been quite a journey. I don't know if you've heard about Brian. He's living with his new wife now, and it seems like he's completely cut ties with me. I haven't heard from him in a while. I'm sorry to hear that, Bernice. It must be tough. Monica, I need to say this. I know I was not the best mother-in-law to you, and I said and did some hurtful things. And what happened at the hospital, I want to apologize for all of it. I'm on your team now. Bernice, I appreciate your honesty. I accept your apology. Thank you, Monica. That means more to me than you can imagine. But there is something else I need to talk to you about. What is it? You see, the old house, it's in really bad shape now. I wanted to buy a new one, but I'm in a tough spot financially. I was wondering if you could help me, just a little, to make it happen. You must be kidding me. You just wanted to talk to me into getting you a new house now that you know I'm doing well financially. It's not like that. I really don't have anyone to rely on. Here is the money for the food we ordered, but I won't be having it. I think I'll leave now. So there I was, heading home after that surreal meeting with Bernice. Her plea for help had left me chuckling and scheming, and I could not deny the thrill of a well-constructed plan. You see, I couldn't help but feel that Bernice had underestimated me, thinking she could manipulate me just like she did back in the day. But oh, how things had changed. I was a different person now, and I was ready to play the game. I couldn't help but laugh at the audacity of my own plan that I came up with. Some might call it petty, but I prefer to think of it as justice. The scheme was simple yet satisfying. I decided to have Bernice sell her old house with Lorna's assistance at a price that was a fraction of what it was worth. I would assure Bernice that I would help her buy a new house only to ghost her at the last moment. It might seem harsh, but after everything Bernice has put me through, it felt like a taste of her own medicine. So I texted Bernice again. I decided to take the high road, or at least pretend to, and told her I was sorry for my initial reaction. I assured her that I would help her with some funds to get the new house she wanted. I also mentioned that my sister-in-law Lorna was a realtor and a market expert who could assist her in setting the right price for her house. I told Lorna about the plan and she was all in. So off we went to Bernice's place. Wow, being here brings back a lot of memories. Yeah, but I need new memories in a new place. Look at how worn out this house is. Well, Bernice, this is not official advice, but I'm sharing it because you're a friend of my husband's sister. To be honest, this house would not cost a penny more than $70,000. What? You must be kidding me. You see, the neighborhood is quite old and the house hasn't been well maintained. It would need a complete renovation and a total makeover. You would have to replace doors and windows and do a lot more. Do you have the funds for all that? I don't. Well, you can seek other opinions, but they'll probably tell you the same. It's quite the project. I had wanted to sell this place independently. It's your call now, Bernice. Well, I'm helping you out anyway, so we'll figure it out together. I couldn't believe how smoothly everything was going. She had put her house up for sale and it seemed like a perfect match for someone looking for a good deal. In just 2 weeks, the house was sold. It was no surprise, given the affordable price she had set, and the buyers seemed more than happy to take it off her hands. During the same time, I had accompanied Bernice in her search for a new house. The audacity of it all was quite amusing. She was looking for houses in posh neighborhoods, bungalows, and more, all for herself. It was evident that her confidence was on the rise. We finally settled on a house and I played my role to perfection. I assured Bernice that she didn't need to worry about a thing. I would take care of the new place, allowing her to focus on packing up her old house and making a smooth transition to her new home. When the time came, I even told her that I had paid for the house, ready to hand over all the paperwork on the day she moved in. She believed every word, and my little scheme was working perfectly. The day I had been waiting for finally arrived. It was the day Bernice had to shift to her new house, and I was sitting by my phone waiting for Bernice to call. And then she did. "Monica, where are you? You said you would be here with the keys and paperwork and—" "Nope, Bernice. I didn't actually purchase that house." "Seriously? I'm out here with a U-Haul truck full of my stuff and you're telling me you didn't buy the house?" "Well, Bernice, it hit me that I couldn't afford that place. You know, it was a real hit to my bank account." "What's the deal? I've got nowhere to crash and all my belongings are in the truck. You're not pulling my leg, are you? Remember when you left me high and dry with those hospital bills? I did try, just like you did back then, but sorry, I still can't be your savior." "Unbelievable that you pulled this stunt." "Well, call your son, check into a hotel, or figure something out. I'm not fazed. Oh, it looks like Roxy needs me now. Goodbye." I told Austin and Lorna about Bernice's situation, and we could not help but laugh our butts off. It was a moment of sweet revenge, but I guess we all need a bit of that from time to time. I don't really know what's become of Bernice or where she's living these days. Frankly, I don't care. I did to her what she did to me back then. I hope her son got the message as well, that they messed with the wrong woman. Maybe it was a tad petty, but hey, sometimes you have got to get your hands dirty to teach people a lesson. It's a wild world out there, and I'm just living my life, managing my business, and enjoying every moment with Roxy. She'll be starting kindergarten soon, and I can't wait to see the amazing person she's growing into. Hello, I'm Allie, a 29-year-old woman. I grew up in a single-parent home. My dad passed away when I was really young, and my mom never remarried. She worked hard every single day to feed me and clothe me, and she never failed to tell me about her struggles. I guess that was why I always felt so indebted to her, even when she treated me like trash. You see, my mom would complain about working so hard to feed me, yet she would constantly criticize me for my weight. I remember the first time I hated myself when I was 8, and my mom walked in on me eating a bar of chocolate after dinner. She yelled at me and told me that I was getting too fat and ugly for her liking. That never stopped. It only got worse as the years progressed. I tried to talk to her, but it never worked. All I got were more insults. The thing is that I wasn't even fat or ugly either. I weighed the normal weight for my age and height, and I got a fair amount of attention from boys. I just didn't understand why my mom hated me so much. I wanted to move out when I turned 18, but I didn't have the funds to do it, so I was stuck living with my mom while I attended college. It was at college that I had my first boyfriend. He was charming and handsome, your typical jock. I was madly in love with him. We got together in the second year and were together until a little after we graduated. I was convinced that he was going to be the one for me. Of course, my mom hated the fact that I had a boyfriend, and I noticed that she would always praise him, but in the same line, insult me. It did not help my already non-existent self-esteem. My boyfriend at that time and I had decided to wait a year and then get married. About 2 months after that decision, he suddenly broke up with me. I was confused and hurt. When I tried to ask him why, he just looked at me in disgust. At that moment, I wanted nothing but the comfort of my mother, so I ran into her arms and cried. Instead of comforting me, she laughed. Thank God he left. He deserves so much better than you. What? Oh yeah, that boy was a pretty tough nut to crack. What do you mean? Oh, it's nothing. He was madly in love with you, but with a little nudge from me, he was able to see the light. See the light? Do you mean, are you saying that you are the reason he broke up with me? What did you say to him? Oh, nothing you don't already know. I just opened his eyes to how ugly you are. When he saw it, he didn't want to marry you, so that's a win. What the hell is wrong with you? There's something seriously wrong in your head. How could you do this to your daughter? Stop being so dramatic, Allie. I know you're sad, but for your own sake, don't indulge in sweets. It'll make you gain more weight. That was what made me snap. I had worked part-time for a long while and had a decent amount of money saved up. That night, while my mom was asleep, I packed my things up and moved out of the house. I stayed at a friend's place until I got myself an apartment. It took a lot of time to heal after that, but when I did, I began to put myself out there a lot more. I began to feel confident in myself. Sometimes I would feel sad that my mom didn't even make an effort to call me or check up on me, but I got over it. I began to check in on her when I felt better, but I still kept the contact minimal. And then I met Holt. Holt and I bumped into each other at a coffee shop. We happened to sit in the same booth because everywhere else was full. We got to talking and he turned out to be this amazing guy with a great sense of humor. We exchanged numbers and, well, the rest was history. Holt and I dated for around 3 years before deciding to make it official. In those 3 years, I got to meet and interact with Holt's family, who accepted me with open arms. That was a very healing experience. I told Holt about my history with my mom, and needless to say, he was not her biggest fan. I was so incredibly happy to be marrying Holt. I felt like I was on top of the world. It felt like nothing could bring me down. And Holt felt the same way. I could tell because he had a skip in his step and he was, in general, really happy. It felt great that someone loved me unconditionally. My looks didn't matter, and part of me just wanted to shove that in my mother's face. I knew it would be petty, but when your own mother bullies you about your looks from when you were 5 until you're well into adulthood, you're going to want to be petty. Holt and I began planning the wedding immediately after we got engaged. I kept my idea of revenge on the back burner because I didn't know if it was morally right. About 2 months into planning our wedding, Holt asked me about who I wanted to invite. So, who are you thinking of inviting? Well, all my close family and friends. I don't think I'll have a lot of people to invite. All right. And I don't mean to be insensitive. When you say family, are you asking me if I'm going to invite my mom? Yeah, I know it's a sensitive topic, but I just want some confirmation. I was actually thinking of inviting her. Oh, really? How come? Okay, I know this will sound mean, but I kind of want to rub it in her face, and I've become who she always told me I wouldn't be. Like she used to constantly tell me that no man would ever love me because of my looks. But here I am. Oh, honey, I don't think that's mean at all. In fact, I fully support it. It's the least mean thing I've ever heard of, but it's perfect considering everything that your mother put you through. Really? So you're okay with it? I am, as long as you are. Although I will say that if your mother says anything rude to you, I will interfere. That's absolutely okay. Thanks for supporting me. That's exactly what I'm here for, isn't it? It felt great to have Holt validate my feelings. He knew about the extent of the damage that my mom did to my self-esteem, and yet he was more than willing to accommodate me. I felt a new wave of excitement then. I couldn't wait to brag to my mom about my marriage. I mean, not only was I marrying a rich and handsome man, but it was also a man who showed me in every way possible that he loved me more than anything. That was definitely going to embarrass my mom. For the next few days, as we finalized the technicalities of the invitation, like the look of it and the fonts and the paper, I couldn't help but wonder how my mom would react. Would she go red in the face from humiliation? Would she apologize? Would she actually for once be proud of me? I know that I seem naive to only be thinking about the best case scenarios, but I couldn't help it. Even though I barely contacted her anymore, she was still the only parent I had, and I wanted to have some form of relationship with her. Don't get me wrong, I would never have forgiven her that easily. She put me through years of therapy because of her bullying. I would make sure that she apologized to me properly and then cautiously build a relationship with her. Every time that I had a negative thought about her reaction, I pushed it away because I didn't know how I would have dealt with it. When it came time to print the invitations out, Holt and I sat together and hand wrote the names of our guests on the invitations. We wanted to do a traditional mail invitation. When I was writing my mother's name on the invitation, Holt was looking over my shoulder. That's when he held my hand to stop me. I looked at him in confusion. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, it's just..." "Do you not want me to invite my mom?" No, it's not that." "That's your mom's full name?" "Yeah, why?" "You guys have different last names." "Oh yeah, my mom kept her maiden name after she got married. I got my dad's name." "That's funny." "Why? What's wrong?" "I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I have an employee with that same exact name." "What? That's crazy." "Yeah, she plans to retire in another year or two." "This is super weird. I mean, your mom's name and maiden name are not very popular ones, do you think?" "I don't know which company she works for, but do you maybe have files of your employees on hand with you right now, or even a staff picture?" "Oh yeah, of course I do." Holt shot up from the couch and ran into his office. My heart was pounding. What were the chances? I had always believed that the world was a small place, but for it to be this small was crazy. Holt came back with his laptop in hand, and we sat down together to find a picture of the woman with the same name as my mom. Thankfully, the company had just had an event recently and a lot of pictures were taken. Holt and I scrolled through a lot of the pictures before I finally saw her. It was my mom. She was laughing at something someone had said while she held a drink in her hand. I just stared in shock for a couple of seconds before bursting out in laughter. Holt asked me if that was my mom, and I said that it was. Of course, Holt didn't know much about my mom, other than why I didn't keep much contact with her. Holt and I shared a laugh after that because it truly was amazing how wonderful the universe had aligned to put my mother in her place. So now, not only was I going to get married to a rich and handsome man who loved me, but I was also getting married to my mom's boss. That was something I definitely wanted to brag about. I hoped desperately for her sake that she was on her best behavior, because she didn't know what she could be risking if she even tried to say anything against me. When we finally sent out the invites, we got a ton of responses almost immediately after they were delivered. I tracked them all to ensure that they reached safely. When I saw that my mom's invitation was accepted, I had hoped to get a quick response, but I got nothing for over a week. I began to lose hope that my mom was even going to come to my wedding. I tried to tell myself that it was no big deal, but like I said, she was my only parent, and getting married was the biggest event in anyone's life. Of course, I wanted my mom there, even if she just sat there silently. Holt could see that I was down and he comforted me. He reminded me that regardless of whether my mom came to the wedding, it would still be our day. We would still be surrounded by people that actually loved us. I began to feel better, but I wasn't fully convinced, and then I got my mom's RSVP and she said yes. That was it. She didn't try to say anything other than yes. Yeah, it hurt that she didn't even call to ask about who I was marrying or even ask about the wedding, but at least she would be there. I messaged her and asked her if she would have liked to be a part of the rehearsal dinner, and she once again replied with just a yes. Having my mom there was a win, a small win, but a win nonetheless. I felt happy. On the day of the rehearsal dinner, I was a nervous wreck. While I was also nervous for my big day, I was also nervous because I would be meeting my mom after 3 years for the first time. I made sure that my dress was perfect, that my hair was all in place, and that my makeup was properly blended. I couldn't help but think at that moment that I didn't even make that much of an effort for Holt. My mom walked into the rehearsal dinner and found me immediately. Holt was busy talking to someone else in some other place in the hall, so Mom never noticed him. She made a beeline straight to me. I felt my hands get clammy as she approached me, but I calmed myself down by reminding myself that no matter what happened, I had the upper hand. She greeted me with a hug before looking me up and down and laughing. I felt myself shrivel up on the inside. She was judging me again, and I felt like the helpless little girl that I was all those years ago. So, who's the unlucky guy? I see you still haven't become skinny, so you must have found some ugly hobo. Mom, that's beyond rude. Oh, please, whoever is choosing to marry you while you look like this must be clearly blind and very unlucky. Actually, I think you're the unlucky one, Quinn. Holt? What are you doing here? What do you think? Didn't his name look familiar to you at all? Well, yeah, but I didn't think... You didn't think what? That your daughter would be capable of marrying someone like me because you think she's too ugly? Or am I enough of a hobo for me to be able to marry your daughter? No, well, I didn't mean it like that. Look, you're on thin ice. It's bad enough that you've insulted me, but if I hear you say one more word against Allie, I swear that I will make your life miserable. Okay, but I must say that Allie, you are an absolute piece of work for purposely going after my boss. What did you think it would do for you? Did you think that I would go easier on you? I didn't purposely go after your boss. We only happened to find out when we were sending the invites, but I did hope to mend our relationship. I guess that won't be happening. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the dinner and I'll see you tomorrow. With that, Holt and I walked away hand in hand. When we had gotten a good distance away from her and out of her eyesight, we dissolved into laughter. The look of absolute horror on her face when she saw Holt was a look I was never going to forget. Yeah, I hoped for a much nicer interaction, but to see her put in her place was actually a lot more satisfying. I was so caught up in my emotions that I didn't even notice Holt walk up to us, but I was really glad that he had managed to come to us right in time. The rest of the evening passed by without any other incident. The next day was hectic. However, when it came time for the ceremony, all I could feel was an immense amount of pride in myself. Seeing Holt stand at the altar with tears in his eyes as he watched me walk down the aisle made all the hours of getting ready worth it. I happened to scan the crowd and spotted my mom. She noticed I was looking at her and she pulled a face. That face was no ordinary face. It was the face she always made whenever I looked ugly or fat. I stumbled as I walked. For a second, I questioned everything I felt. I knew I looked beautiful, but to see my mom so outwardly tell me with her expression that I didn't made me feel very, very insecure. I looked at Holt and all my doubts vanished. He still looked at me like I was the only girl in the room. Other than that, there was no other hitch in the ceremony. Holt and I exchanged our vows through tears and the crowds cheered as we kissed. On our way to the reception hall, I told Holt about what had happened earlier in the ceremony. So, something happened earlier in the ceremony. What happened? Are you okay? Oh yeah, I'm fine right now. Okay, good. Then tell me what happened. Well, when I was walking down the aisle, I stumbled a little and almost fell. Yeah, I was a little worried. Yeah, well, I happened to look into the crowd and I saw my mother just making this face at me. It was the face she always made at me to tell me that I didn't look good. My God, what the hell is wrong with that woman? How could she do that to her own daughter on her special day? I don't know, but in that moment all I wanted to do was run away and cry. But then I took one look at you and I felt all right. That's right. If your mother does something like that again, just look at me. You're beautiful, and nothing your mother says or does will ever change that. Thanks. I needed that. And I was being serious when I said that. I would take action if your mom did something against you again. Now that I know just how much leverage I have over her, you best believe that I will make sure she learns her lesson properly. And I'll be okay with whatever you do. The reception started off well. We started with dancing and drinking, and everyone was having an overall great time. Holt and I greeted all our guests and held conversations with them. I found myself feeling better and better with every interaction. At some point, I saw my mom walk into the hall, but she ignored us and walked straight to the bar. I felt kind of bad, but I figured being ignored was better than being told I looked ugly again, so I let it go. Holt kept me by his side the entire time. I was grateful for that because it was a great distraction. Finally, it came time for the toasts. Holt started it off with a heartfelt toast to us and our relationship, which honestly made me cry. I followed after him, and I was happy to see that I was able to make him feel the same emotions he made me feel with my toast. If there was one thing to mention about the toast time, it was that with every toast that was made to Holt and me, my mom scoffed. It got her a lot of dirty looks, but that did not stop her. At some point, she stood up and said that she had a toast to give to us too. My heart dropped. I knew my mother, and I knew how evil she could be. I knew that this would not end well. Holt held my hand, and when I looked at him, his jaw was clenched. At least we both felt the same anxiety at that moment. My mom began to talk about how I was undeserving of Holt. She praised Holt for the man he was and conveniently brought up how he was her boss, and a very good one at that. When she spoke of me, she kept talking about how ugly I was and how I should be grateful that Holt even spared me a glance. I felt sick. How could she say that? Holt looked like he was going to burst a vein from how hard he was restraining himself. The rest of our guests looked appalled. Finally, when my mother finished her god-awful speech, she sat down with a satisfied smirk on her face. She was happy with the reactions she got. Thankfully, the rest of the evening proceeded without anyone even mentioning what my mom had said. Holt and I tried our best to put everything behind us just for the night. Even when we finally got back home that night, neither of us spoke about it. There was an air of sadness, but we chose to ignore it because we were happy that we were finally legally and officially together. The next day, Holt left for work. He told me that something urgent had come up and he promised to be back by noon, so I didn't mind. True to his word, Holt came back home by noon and we settled into the couch to watch some of our favorite shows. An hour or so later, I heard a banging on the front door. Along with the banging, I heard my mom yelling for me to come out and open the door. I was confused and looked at Holt. I felt his urgent business had something to do with my mom. I walked to the door and opened it. "You absolute wretch! What did you say to him?" "Huh? What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb. You made him fire me." "Holt fired you?" "Yeah, and I'm sure it's because of something you said. You're so stupid that you never know what you ever say." "I'm going to have to stop you there, Quinn. I don't think I need to remind you of your speech from yesterday. But I praised you. And you completely dissed your own daughter, who is my wife. How did you possibly think that was okay? I told you I'd make you regret it if you even said a word against her. Whatever. You can't fire me for that. I'll sue you. You've also been highly negligent with your work. I was going to fire you anyway, but kept you for a few months only because you are Allie's mother. Since you have no respect for her, I see no reason why I should even help you out. Now, if you'll excuse us, we're busy right now. Goodbye. I couldn't believe it. Holt stood up for me in a way that I hadn't even considered. Holt held me in his arms as I cried. I finally felt free. I felt so valued and respected, and I knew that I never wanted anything less than that from then on. I didn't care to find out what happened to Mom after that, and neither did Holt. The two of us continued to live our lives in blissful ignorance of her whereabouts. I've learned just how important it is to have and enforce your boundaries. Don't let anyone ever treat you like you're worth nothing, because I promise you, to someone else, you mean the world. Thank you. Hello, my name is Perry and I'm 28 years old. This event actually has this huge backstory behind it. I come from a complicated family, to say the least, but this incident will revolve around my pathetic excuse of a father, and I'm only speaking about this because I need to rant about everything that happened somewhere. My dad had married my mom when they were only 19. You see, my mom got pregnant with me then. They were supposed to be a casual fling only, but well, that couldn't happen anymore. My dad had initially wanted to leave, but his parents threatened to cut him off if he abandoned his child. So you can imagine the mindset with which my dad was entering into parenthood. My mom came from a religious family, so they got married pretty quickly. When I was born, my dad was barely around. All of my earliest memories were with my mom itself. I remember hearing them fight a lot. Mom would always be crying while my dad yelled at her. He used to tell her that he was miserable all because of her. I remember not liking him for a long while. Even though there was a lot of negativity in my house, my mom made sure to shield me from it all to the best of her abilities. My mom was diagnosed with late-stage cancer when I was 6, and she was gone within a year. Of course, I was devastated. I would cry and scream for her, and that only seemed to get my dad even angrier. He never fully abandoned me, but I was almost always at my grandparents' place. A year after my mom passed away, Dad got married to my stepmom, Stacy. Stacy had 3 children of her own. Around the same time, Dad's business had started to take off. He was making enough money to buy a mansion-sized house for all of us to live in. But all of that meant nothing much to me because it was all just hell. Stacy hated me. She actively tried to make my life hell. She always insisted that I call her Mom, even though I told her that she was never going to be my mom. Dad also took her side, and I was often grounded for weeks because I refused to call her Mom. I remember one time Dad and Stacy cornered me when I was 13 years old and asked me to let Stacy adopt me. Perry, we have something important to discuss with you. I want to adopt you as my child too. No, I told you, you're not my mom, and you won't ever be. I do not remember saying that I'm asking you. That's unfair. You barely gave me time to process Mom's death to begin with. You brought a whole new woman into my life and you expected me to call her Mom from the start? I don't want another mom. I had the best one. Get over it, Perry. It happened years ago. What was so perfect about your stupid mother anyway? All she did was make my life miserable. At least she was there for me. All you ever did was make her cry. Perry, this is no way to speak to your father. Whatever. I'm going to my room. Things only got worse from there. Dad stopped looking my way entirely. He refused to have a conversation with me unless it was to yell at me for something Stacy or her kids complained about. I tried to have at least some form of a relationship with him, but he made it explicitly clear that he disliked me. And Stacy didn't make things better for me. She kept telling me that I was the black sheep of the family because I refused to let go of my mom. She told me that I was a painful reminder of her to my dad, and that if I just gave in, my life would be easier. Of course, I never listened to a word of what she said. When both of them realized what they wanted was never going to happen, they resorted to ignoring everything regarding me. I was left alone to fend for myself. By this time, I was around 14. I was given a monthly allowance to survive on, and that was about it. I wanted to run away from home, but my grandparents on both sides had passed away, and I had no contact with any other family member. While I struggled, my step-siblings lived lavish lives. There was not a thing they didn't get, regardless of whether they asked for it or not. They had all the latest gadgets and all the best things in life. They went to these expensive private schools and had an allowance that was at least 3 times more than mine. This only made me angrier because these kids were younger than me. What had I done that was so wrong? I was still my father's daughter. I tried to talk to him about it, but he wouldn't even engage me. He would walk past me like I didn't exist. Meanwhile, Stacy would smirk at me and offer fake sympathy. When I turned 16, my monthly allowance stopped. I was told to get a job and sustain myself that way. Of course, I was exhausted every single day. Juggling school and work was tiring, but no one really cared. The only solace I had was my best friend and the thought that once I turned 18, I would have access to the trust fund my mom set up for me. My mom came from a pretty wealthy family. As soon as she found out she was pregnant, she set up a trust fund in my name. When my grandparents passed away, my inheritance was put into the trust fund. Would I have liked the money at that point itself? Yeah, but life was not going to be easy that way. I think my breaking point was when I was 17. I had already been supporting myself because my dad spent everything he earned on his stepkids. I had begun to find money missing from my wallet. Initially, it was only small amounts, but then it started to get bigger. Of course, I freaked out, but I couldn't really point fingers at anyone because I had no proof of anything. Of course, I didn't rule out the possibility that I was misplacing my money. So I started saving all my bills and keeping accounts of every purchase I made. When I still found money disappearing, I decided to keep all my money in my account itself. I figured it would be tiring to keep having to withdraw money whenever I needed cash, but as long as I wasn't losing money, it didn't matter. And then the money started disappearing from my account. I was furious. I knew for sure that I wasn't the one who was spending it. I went through my transactions online and found out that money had been transferred from my account to my stepsister's account. I saw red at that point. I confronted my stepmom about it because I knew that talking to my stepsister would do nothing. Your daughter has been stealing money from me. You better put her in her place. Stealing? Oh, honey, I doubt that she would steal from you. Well, look here. These are my bank statements, and they clearly show that money has been sent from my account to hers. Maybe you sent her the money because she asked you to? I know I didn't. She never even asked me. Look, why don't you just put this behind you, yeah? She's your sister after all. She must have needed a little money. How can I put this behind me? I'm the one responsible for myself. There's never enough money for my needs. So when your daughter steals from me, how do I continue to survive? Stop being dramatic. All she took was $40. She didn't only take $40. She's been stealing from me for months now. I've been struggling for a while now, but none of you guys seem to care. You know what? I'll stop being dramatic when you pay me back the $300 she took from me. How could you be so selfish? It's your sister. She's not. Even if she was, any reasonable parent would have reimbursed what she took from me. Oh, so you think I'm being unreasonable? Yes, obviously. Wait till your dad hears about this. I groaned because I knew where that was going to go. But at that point, I had given up hope. I knew that whatever my dad heard from his lovely wife was going to trump everything I said. I knew at that moment that I couldn't go on living that way. I began packing all my things while I waited for my dad to come back home from work. The only reason I didn't leave immediately was because I had hoped that he would listen to me. I wanted to give him one last chance. But since there was a large possibility that he would ignore everything I said, I made arrangements for my stay at my best friend's place. Her parents were more than happy to help me out. I only had a few more months until I turned 18. Once I turned 18, I would have been able to get my own place. I had enough saved up for at least a small deposit, and my best friend's parents also offered to help, so I knew that everything would turn out all right for me regardless of what my dad said. That evening, I heard my dad walk into the house and I heard Stacy talking to him. While she was talking to him, my stepsister, who had been the one who was stealing from me, peeked into my room and smirked at me. She told me that I had made a big mistake by telling her mom about what she had been doing. She planned to make my life hell, so she wished me all the luck in the world. She left before I could get a single word out. I knew then and there that I wanted to get out for sure. There was no way that I was going to be staying in that house anymore because no one, and I mean no one, would listen to anything I said. My dad would never even raise his voice against his stepkids, and Stacy thinks they're just little angels. Just as I was about to get ready to leave, I heard my dad angrily walking up the stairs. I quickly stuffed away my packed things under my bed and sat on my bed while trying to look like I was simply reading a book. My heart raced with anxiety as I waited for my dad to come in and start yelling at me. You called your mom unreasonable, Perry? That is beyond disrespectful. Did she tell you why I called her unreasonable? Just because one of your sisters took some money from you isn't a good enough reason. She didn't take money from me. She stole it from me. Oh, wow. So first you're disrespectful to your mom, and now you're just outright lying to me. I'm not lying. I have proof. I don't care. That proof is probably fake anyway. You'll really do anything so you can get attention, won't you? Why would I purposely lose money to get attention? So you can get money from us, obviously. Why do I have to get money from you, when as your daughter it's your duty to provide for me? Don't backtalk me. You're grounded for a month. But not a single word. You're such a disappointment. With that went my plan of running away. Well, at least for a month. My dad walked out of my room with my laptop and my phone. I had no other option but to wait until I was not grounded anymore. Of course, I felt super sad and angry. I was upset that my dad had always chosen his other family over me. At that moment, I wished that I had my mom more than anything. I spent the next few days just crying. That month was hell for me. My stepsister kept up with her word and actually made my life hell. She kept pulling these pranks on me that always involved me getting hurt or embarrassed in some way. Like she once added Nair to my shampoo, and thankfully I figured something was off with the way she was insistent on me washing my hair that day. Another time she spilled oil on the kitchen floor and screamed, knowing that I would rush to her. I ended up slipping and falling pretty hard. She never got scolded because they were always just pranks. If anything, that got laughs from my dad and Stacy. They always applauded her for her genius pranks. By the end of the month, I was so ready to leave the place behind me. I couldn't even call that place home because I only ever felt uncomfortable there. On the day that I got my phone and laptop back, I waited until everyone in the house fell asleep to text my best friend. She came and picked me up. I managed to sneak out of the house without making a single sound, and in that moment, I had never felt freer and more excited for the future. From then on, my life only took a turn for the better. My best friend's parents gave me a room in their house and treated me like I was their own child. My money was mine to keep because they took care of my every need. I was truly blessed to have such kind people in my life. As soon as I turned 18, I was given access to the trust fund my mom had set up for me. It had more than enough money to get me through college and take care of me for a little while after I graduated as well. I got into my dream college and I moved states to attend it. I was a stellar student and I worked on the side too. I knew that I had more than enough money to live well, but I didn't want to solely depend on the trust fund. I worked at a local coffee shop to live well. I was able to rent a small apartment and I finally felt free and alive. I barely heard anything from my dad. I got one text from him asking me where I was the morning after I left. I simply told him I was safe and that was the end of all conversation between him and me. Yeah, it hurt like crazy that he never bothered to check on how I was doing. I still followed him on social media and I saw pictures of all the places he and his family went to every other month or so. For a while, I even wondered if I was the one who had been holding them back for so long. Was I the one making them unhappy? But then, the more I thought about it, the more I realized how messed up it was that my dad blatantly ignored me constantly. It was messed up how he would treat his family better than me while I lived with him. I knew I couldn't stay silent like that for too long. I knew that I wanted to get back at him in whatever little way I could. I got a bunch of my friends to leave negative reviews on my dad's products on every site possible. My dad worked as an app developer and in general with data development. I knew just how important reviews were for his business. Anyway, over my college years, I managed to make a lot of friends and acquaintances. Each one of them negatively rated my dad's stuff for a while using different accounts. Eventually, though, I forgot about it. I guess I felt like I had done enough damage as it was. Not to mention, I wasn't seeing any actual results and it felt like I was just hating into a void, so I let it go. About 6 years after I moved out, I was in a much better place. I had a well-paying job after graduating from university with honors. I was able to rent a better place and even managed to get myself into a good relationship. I was living a great life. And then my dad turned up at my door. It was a regular weekend when I heard a knock at the door. I went to check the security camera and I was shocked to see my dad standing there waiting to be buzzed in. I contemplated letting him in. On one hand, I wanted nothing to do with him any longer. On the other hand, I was way too curious to find out why he suddenly wanted to meet. I decided to let him in. "Hey, honey." "Honey? What's with this sudden sweetness?" "Sudden? I've always been this way with you." "Oh, just cut it out already." "Why are you always so mean? This is why I could never bond with you." "You can't be serious. You went 5 years without talking to me because I'm mean? If that's what you've come to talk to me about, you can leave." No, that's not it. I needed to talk to you about something really important." "Well, what is it?" "I see that you're living a very good life now. Is it all your mother's money?" "Why? Do you only think I'm capable of being successful because of my mom's money?" "Well, no, but I'm just wondering." "At least I had one parent that cared about me." "Oh, don't be like that, Perry." "Just tell me what you came here to tell me. The more I listen to you talk, the angrier I get." It was true. I really did begin to feel immense amounts of rage the more he stood in my living room and talked. Somehow he did not feel remorseful at all. He was purposely saying things that he knew would irritate me. The only reason I let him stay is because I was too damn curious to find out what it was that he wanted to tell me. Dad shuffled around on his feet and looked around my apartment for a minute, so I figured he would much rather have this conversation while sitting down. I led him to the couch and brought him a glass of water. "Okay, you're comfortable now. Spill." "So, I'm in trouble right now." "Trouble? What do you mean?" "My company went under." Do you mean that you've had to shut it down? Yeah, it's been rough. I mean, everything I built has just come crashing down so hard. How did it happen? I just made a bunch of terrible business decisions because I had a lot of negative reviews coming in for a long while. Those decisions only led to a loss of business. I had to close it down before I lost even more money. How's Stacy and her kids? About that, they left me. Left? Why? Weren't you like the best thing that happened to them? Apparently, they were only there for the money. Stacy left me the day my company shut down, so it was like a double kill for me. So, what are you going to do now? Well, I was thinking that since you had all your mom's money still with you, or at least a good portion of it, you should help me out. Should? Why should I do anything for you? Because you have money and I'm your dad. Well, you're not my dad. You haven't been my dad for years. As soon as you married Stacy, you stopped being my dad. How can you say that? You ignored me for years. You didn't even provide for me. You had so much money and barely any of it went towards me. You deserve everything coming your way. I didn't raise you to be so heartless. That's about the only thing you actually taught me. Get out of my house. I could tell that he was hurt by the way I was treating him. But then again, the air of importance he walked in with made me want to punch him. And for him to just demand that I fork out money and help him out was beyond anything that I had even expected him to do. Dad tried to protest, but I told him the same advice he gave me every time I came to him for help. This is your problem, not mine. This is life. Get used to it. I could see that Dad wanted to tear his hair out of his scalp in frustration, and that sight truly made me feel great. I couldn't believe that the little thing I did could have had such a large impact. I'm not even kidding when I say that I had actually forgotten about it, and even about him for a while. Seeing him again reignited all the hatred and anger I felt towards him. Disowning him as my father only made things sweeter for me. Finally, I got to do to him what he did to me for nearly all my life. Dad did end up leaving shortly after that. It took a while for me to calm down from that experience, but I managed to continue living my life normally. Dad kept trying to text and call me. He would keep switching between begging me to help him and calling me a selfish, ignorant brat who had no values. Either way, I never paid him much attention. I learned over time that he had been bumming off a few family members. He's been struggling while Stacy actually was living her life. She managed to find another man to hook up to, and my dad was very, very salty about that. His social media was filled with nothing but hate towards her. Several family members came forward and asked me to take my dad in, but I blatantly refused. I explained my situation to them, and while some of them agreed with me, most of them told me to let everything go because he was family. I reminded them that he was their family too, so they were free to help him out. Life since then has been good once again. I received a promotion and I'll be getting married next year. I know I struggled a lot, but I'm glad that I had at least one parent who looked out for me enough that I was able to finally make it in life. Hello, I'm Macy, a 42-year-old woman who has gone through a lot in her life. Today, I want to tell you about how I became a single mom when my kids were very young. I had met my ex-husband, Harry, through some mutual friend. We hit it off pretty well. He was everything I had ever dreamed of. We both worked good jobs and we were financially stable. While I had no contact with my family, Harry's parents welcomed me with open arms. He checked all my boxes, so of course I said yes when he asked me to marry him after 3 years of dating. Harry was always open about his desire to start a family. I wasn't the biggest fan of having kids, but I wanted to make Harry happy, so I agreed to it. However, once my kids were born, I knew that I had made the best decision of my life. Initially, Harry was an amazing father and husband. He took care of us, sometimes to the point that he even forgot about himself. I truly thought I had hit the jackpot with him. But then, out of the blue, a couple of years after I had both kids, things started going downhill. He had a new coworker join his team and they began to hang out a lot. Now, from the start, I did not like the look of his coworker. That man just looked like a bad influence. My gut feeling was right because pretty soon, Harry was ignoring me and the kids. He would come back home from work and lock himself up in his room to play games. I tried talking to him over and over again, but he never listened to me. We would get into these heated arguments when the kids weren't around. He would complain about me pushing too many responsibilities on him and me being a nag. The thing is, I wasn't asking him to go above and beyond. I just wanted him to do something, considering he was doing absolutely nothing at that moment. And then one day, Harry asked me if he could take the kids to the park while I was at work. He had a day off and he wanted to bond with the kids. At that moment, I was filled with so much joy at the prospect that Harry was coming back to his old self that I readily agreed to it without thinking about my kids skipping school. I was at work when my father-in-law, Dave, called me. It was not very odd for me to get calls from him at that time because he would call me to regularly check in on me, so I happily picked up. But he sounded upset. "Macy, are you at work?" "Yeah, is everything all right? You sound upset." "Well, Maria and I happened to be on our way back home from the grocery store when we happened to see the kids at the park." "Oh yeah, Harry said he'd be taking them there. They were alone. Lacey was crying and Jax was trying his best to calm her down." "What? Oh my God. Are they okay?" "Yeah, we picked them up and they're sleeping right now." "Do you know where Harry is? Or how long were they there for?" "Jack said that Harry had taken them to the park at around 10 in the morning, and we picked them up around 12. Apparently, Harry had dropped them off at the park and just left." "That man is going to get a piece of my mind." "If you manage to get through to him, let him know that his parents also want to have a stern word with him." "You haven't been able to get through to him?" "Nope, his phone is switched off." "Okay, I'll try to get a hold of him too. Until then, I hope it won't be an issue to watch over the kids until I get back." "Of course not, honey. We'll make sure they eat too when they wake up." "Thanks a lot. I don't know what I'd do without you two." I managed to be kind and grateful even though I was raging on the inside. Once I was off the phone with Dave, I immediately dialed for Harry. Just like David said, Harry's phone was switched off. I don't know how I managed to get through the rest of my workday. I kept making phone calls to Harry throughout the day, but never got a response. Once I was done with work, I decided to go home first. I hoped that Harry was just at home playing some games. I know that it's pathetic, but I still hoped that he had only left the kids in the park to play his stupid games. I called Dave and informed him about my plan, and he assured me that it was all right. I also didn't want my kids to see me getting angry at Harry if he was actually at home. Harry and I had been struggling for a while, but I didn't want my kids to see any of that. I didn't want them to think that the toxic aspects of my relationship with Harry were normal. When I got back home, I immediately noticed that something was different. The house felt emptier. I had a sinking feeling in my chest. I ran through the house yelling out for Harry, but he was nowhere there. With every room I walked into, the more I panicked when I didn't see him there. I walked into his den in the basement and saw that it was completely cleared out. It was then that I actually felt a huge panic attack coming about. Harry had an elaborate gaming setup, and I knew that he would never have moved it anywhere else in the house because we didn't have that kind of place. I carefully walked up the stairs because I could feel myself slowly losing my breath. When I got to our bedroom, I noticed all his clothes that were piled in the corner of the room were missing. I went through his nightstand and it was empty. Our shared wardrobe was also empty. Our bathroom had been cleared of all his products. None of his things were there. He had left us. I was struggling to breathe. How the hell was I supposed to raise 2 kids all on my own? What about surviving on my income only? If I was to pick up another job, I would have no time to actually spend with my kids. In my panic, I kept calling Harry. I didn't care about anything at that point. My dignity and ego were not going to stop me from begging Harry on my knees to come back. But of course, none of my calls went through, and neither did my messages. I must have been blocked. With nothing else to do, I managed to calm myself down enough and made my way back to my car. I hoped that Dave had been able to get a hold of Harry. My heart raced faster the closer I got to Dave and Maria's. I knew I had to put on a brave face in front of the kids first. My kids greeted me at the front door. I hugged them and did a quick once-over to check if they were all okay. They looked happy and fine, and I felt a little relieved. They told me all about their day, and for a second, I had forgotten about my huge problem. Maria sensed my unease, though, so she had my kids leave the room to play in their playroom. She went back into the living room with a glass of water. Dave, Maria, and I sat on the couch and we began to discuss everything that had happened. "Did you manage to talk to Harry?" No, I don't know where he is and I'm freaking out." "What's wrong?" "I went back home and all his stuff is gone." "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" "Gone, as in there's no trace that he ever even lived in our home. All his clothes, his toiletries, his gaming things, everything's just gone." "You think he left you?" "I hate that he's done this." "I'm going to teach him a good lesson if he does come back. That is not how I raise my son to behave." "Do you have any idea where he may be?" "Well, there are his friends, places, and some of his usual haunts, but other than that, not really." "Okay, well, let's start by talking to his friends and then looking around the places he usually visits. If nothing turns up, we'll go to the police." I really did not want to get the police involved in this matter, so I tried calling everyone that we knew. I even managed to find some of Harry's high school friends and asked them if they had seen him around. Maria and Dave contacted their relatives and neighbors to find any information. We even went around the city looking for him. During this time, I had to juggle the kids and work. I was lucky enough to get a week off when I explained my situation to my boss. When it came to dealing with my kids, however, that was a lot tougher. I got asked every single day where their dad was, and I had no answer to really give them. I would tell them that he was away on a business trip, and then they would ask when he'd be back. Thankfully, Dave and Maria had my back a lot. When it got too overwhelming to juggle everything, they took over. Eventually, we did get the police involved. However, they said that they were not going to be able to help considering he left on his own accord, so he technically was not a missing person. Everything shattered at that moment. I didn't know how to proceed from there. Maria and Dave also seemed to be in some sort of trance, just like I was. I remember feeling so betrayed and abandoned at that moment. What happened to all of Harry and I's promises? What about our promise to stay together forever, or to raise our kids to be great people, or to even go on a date every 4th Saturday of the month? I spent every night crying myself to sleep after that. I couldn't even face my kids because how could I tell them that their dad had run away from us and left us? Dave and Maria came over one night to check in on me, and after I had put the kids to bed, I broke down crying in front of them. Before I knew it, the two of them were crying too. We just held each other for a little while until we stopped crying. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cry this way. There's every reason to cry. You've lost a husband and we've lost our son. We get what you feel. Yes, that's why we keep coming over. I guess somewhere inside we feel guilty for his behavior. You have absolutely no reason to feel any guilt. He was the one who made the decision to abandon us, and he's responsible for it. Yeah, but maybe it was the way we brought him up that made him. Nonsense. I know you brought him up well because you are here right now. You could have also left us alone since your son is not here, but you've chosen to be here to take care of us and help me out. You're right. We could never leave you guys. You're family. Precisely, Macy. I want you to remember that we're family. We want to help you and the kids out in any way possible. Don't hesitate to ask us, okay? Of course. After that, we slowly grew out of the hurt and misery we felt. I managed to somehow break the news to my kids about their father's abandonment. I feel like they had an inkling that their father was never coming back because they were eerily calm about it. They only asked me if their grandparents and I were going to leave them too. I assured them we would never, and that was the first time I didn't feel upset at Harry. Instead, I felt rage towards him. He had shown my kids what abandonment felt like, and now they were going to be cautious about it for a while. But my in-laws and I tried our hardest to do only the best for them and show them that we were never going anywhere. The kids continued to thrive, and I began to see them going back to their happy, bubbly selves. Around 5 years into Harry's disappearance, I stopped checking up on him. I had been religiously trying to contact him up until then, but then one day I realized just how long 5 years was. Harry had missed a lot of firsts of his kids, and the kids had all but forgotten about him. I didn't see any reason to want him back. 10 years after Harry left us, things were going well for us. Jax got into his dream college with a full ride, and Lacey was acing all her classes. I was earning enough for us to live more than comfortably. Maria and Dave were practically living with us because they were getting pretty old, and we didn't want them to be living on their own. Maria and Dave were struggling with their health, their bones hurt, and in general had issues with their blood and sugar levels. I was dreading one of them passing away. They had been my rock during my hard times, so I wanted them to enjoy a good time with me then. It took years for all of us to adjust to our new lives, and I wanted them to enjoy it to its fullest. I guess it came as no real surprise to me when Dave got really ill. Maria and I kept taking turns staying at the hospital when Dave had slipped into a coma. It was a hard time for all of us. For a long while, there was no laughter or smiles in our home. However, things changed when Dave finally woke up. He was still very weak and sick, but he was still alive. We were told that regardless of him being awake, he still didn't have much time to live. The entire family spent time with him at the hospital after that. Dave made peace with the fact that he wasn't going to be there much longer. He was the one who uplifted the mood somehow. Even though he was pretty weak, he still insisted on me getting his lawyer there so he could rearrange his affairs and rewrite his will. When the lawyer was in the room, none of us were allowed in. Sorry, I couldn't let you guys in. Oh dear, it's okay. Just get your rest in. I just wanted to surprise you guys. That's awfully sweet of you to think about a surprise for us right now, Dave. Of course, you know how much I love surprises. We really don't want this surprise for a while, though, dear. Oh, at least this way there will be at least something to look forward to. I just have one condition for you. What is it? You have to stick to what's written in the will. Promise me that no matter what happens, my estates will remain divided the way I divided them. Of course, dear. Promise. I promise everything will be as you wanted it to be. About 2 weeks after he woke up, Dave passed away in his sleep. I was a mess. He was like a father to me. He was the only man in my life that was there for me and helped me learn and grow. He was also a father figure to my kids and greatly helped me bring them up. Maria and the kids were a mess too. There was so much crying and hurting. All of us had lost someone very dear to our hearts. I had taken up the initiative to take care of all the paperwork and all the funeral services. I knew that Maria did not have the strength for that. The funeral took place 3 days after Dave passed away. There were a lot of people, and it felt good to see that Dave was just as loved by many more people that were in his life. Of course, at that moment, I did feel a pang of anger. I was sure that Harry must have found out that his dad had passed away. I even had Dave's obituary published in the newspaper, but he still never showed up for the funeral. Then again, if Harry did show up, I didn't know how I would have reacted. I guess it was just better that the only people there were the people who truly loved and cared for Dave. The next few days after the funeral were spent grieving some more. In those days, we also got access to Dave's will, and we were pleasantly surprised by it. Dave had divided all his estates between the 4 of us. He gave a lot more to the kids, which honestly I was super grateful for because they needed it a lot more than Maria and I. But he had also left something for Harry. It was a letter. I was desperately wanting to open it and read it, but I knew that it would have been a violation of Dave's wishes because he had made it explicitly clear that only Harry was the one that was going to read the letter. I wish I could say that I wasn't surprised when Harry showed up, but I really was. Thankfully, Jax had gone back to university and Lacey had been away at school when Harry showed up. When I saw his face, I was filled with rage. Maria was in the same boat as me. He looked like he was barely alive. He looked malnourished, his bones were jutting out and his eyes were huge on his now small face. He had a lot of muscle before, and now his arms and legs looked like twigs. His voice was very raspy and his eyes were bloodshot. I had a very strong feeling that he must have spent the last few years abusing substances. Of course, I know that addictions are a genuine illness that needs to be treated. If it were any other circumstance, I would have empathized with an addict, but not with Harry. No, he was a man that had it all. He had the perfect wife, the perfect kids, the perfect house, the perfect job, and the perfect friend. He threw it all away because he didn't want to be responsible anymore and wanted to do substances instead. What the hell are you doing here? What do you mean? I'm here to meet you guys. Cut the crap, Harry. You went missing for 10 years and suddenly you want to meet? I know I messed up, but I really do want to make up for everything I did. Right. I don't think that's possible, and you know it. So tell us why you're actually here, or I will have to get the cops involved. No need to be so aggressive. I'm here because I just found out my dad died. Excuse me for wanting to meet my family. Was that what it took for you to come back? Well, yeah, my dad was my everything, and finding out that he's no longer going to be there just shifted my entire perspective. I feel like crap that I didn't get to spend time with him. Why did you leave then? Because I guess I was just tired with everything going on in my life and I ran away from it. You're disgusting. I hope you know it. Yeah, well, anyways, did Dad leave me anything? That's when it clicked in my head. It must have clicked in Maria's head too, because we made eye contact with each other as soon as Harry asked that. Harry did not care for his father or his family. He was there to collect his inheritance. Of course I was angry. I was so close to lashing out at him, but Maria held my hand to calm me down. She was right. I knew that Dave did leave something for him, and it was not what Harry wanted. Maria walked into her bedroom and retrieved the letter that Dave had left Harry in the meantime. Maria walked into her bedroom and retrieved the letter that Dave had left Harry. In the meantime, Harry and I stood in front of each other in silence. He had this smirk on his face as if saying that he had won. It took all of my self-control to not laugh in his face. When Maria returned with the letter in hand, Harry's face lit up. He almost ripped the envelope with his excitement. He pulled out the letter and began to read. The smirk on his face dropped and turned into a look of anger the more he read. He then looked at me with so much hatred in his eyes and pointed his finger at me. You! What? What did I do? You poisoned my father's mind. Excuse me? He left me nothing, absolutely nothing, and he says it's because you were more of a daughter to him than I was a son. Well, you did disappear for a while. How could he do this to me? Did it not matter to him at all? Of course not. You abandoned your kids, so your father abandoned you. How can you say that? Do you guys not care for me at all? We care for you just as much as you cared for your family these past 10 years. Harry was left speechless. He couldn't believe that he would be treated the same way that he had been treating us, which in my opinion is stupid of him. He had some nerve to show up and demand his inheritance when he did nothing to deserve it. He wasn't even there when his dad was suffering. But thinking about how Dave had used the last few days of his life just to write a letter disowning Harry made me feel amazing. Harry tried to make a fuss about it, but Maria nipped it in the bud. She did not listen to a word he said and told him to get out of the house. He threatened to take me to court and get his house back, but I reminded him that legally speaking, his abandoning the property meant that it automatically transferred to me. He had absolutely nothing to his name. Harry looked pale as a ghost while I was glowing with satisfaction. Finally, I got to see Harry in the same position he had put me in 10 years ago. I wish that it didn't have to involve Dave passing away, but at the end of the day, Harry got what he deserved, and that was enough. Harry left our house and our lives once again after that. He never bothered to contact us again, and honestly, we were fine with it because that had been our reality for a long time. Life went back to normal for the rest of us. It was hard to keep going because Dave wasn't there, but knowing that he loved us so much to ward off a potential selfish jerk was motivation enough to keep going.